I believe that networking is one of the most powerful success skills that you can possibly leverage in your life. I think networking is one of those skills that's not taught nearly enough. And I think it's a skill that can really set you up for success no matter what career you're in, no matter what journey you're on, no matter where you're heading to. So this series of videos is really going to be around sharing some of my insights on networking, things I've learned with networking, things that I've learned that can help you to be a better networker, and some stories along the way. Today we're going to focus on some stories of how networking has been impactful for me in my career. And hopefully through these stories, you can glean some information, some insights, some tips and some tricks as to how you can leverage networking to succeed in your life as well. So if I think back on my career and I think back on my life of all the jobs I had, all the careers changes I've made, which hasn't been a ton, but, and I think back to how did I get those jobs? Literally every job I've ever had is because of networking or was impacted in some way because of networking. So if I go all the way back to the very first job I ever had, it came from my network. My very first job I ever had was being a babysitter. And it was actually babysitting my little cousin. It was a paid job opportunity. And that came as a result of my uncle. So if you think about your family as being part of your network and in your sphere of influence, and in your in that level A of your network, if you will, that's probably how a lot of you got your first jobs too, was a referral by a family member. Hey, why don't you go check this place out? Or, hey, I know so-and-so down the street that's hiring that you should go down. Just mention my name and he'll take good care of you. In my case, again, it was working directly for a family member. But my second job that I got while I was still in high school was working in a Christmas tree farm. And that job, I was, learning how to take money and how to manage customers and how to work with customers and meet their needs, but also I was lugging around Christmas trees in the cold and the wet and the slop. So very fond memories of that. And my neck still itches a little bit from all the pine trees rubbing up against it for an entire Christmas season. But how I got that job was a result of a family friend from our church. And it was a church contact. So again, in that immediate sphere of influence, that immediate network that I had, that I saw every Sunday, that owned a Christmas tree farm. And we just knew that they seasonally hired a lot of high school students to come and work there. And it was because of the rapport, the connections that my family had to them through church that got me that job. Fast forward to college. I never was formally taught that networking was a key to success or that networking was a vital skill to practice and learn. It wasn't something my parents knew. It wasn't something my parents did. It wasn't something my parents instilled in me. So I don't really know where I learned it from, but somewhere along the way, I heard someone say something probably like, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And maybe my parents said that at one point. Maybe they said it while complaining about them not knowing anybody and how others have it better because they know people and that's how they get it in. I'm not sure, but that stuck with me. And when I went to college, everything I did in college, I thought about it through the perspective of how can I expand my network? How can I leverage this for my network? How will this benefit my short-term and long-term network? So one of the things I did, one of the jobs that I took when I was in college was working in events at the event center on campus. I went to Robert Morris University. It was Robert Morris College at the time here in Pittsburgh. And there was a rather large event center there on campus that had everything from baseball card shows to concerts to, set up the graduation ceremonies, job fairs. And there was a lot of activity went through there and a lot of people and a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, as well as the other event staff and the management of the event center itself. So it was actually a really, really great on-campus job opportunity because not only did it, I didn't necessarily get that job because of my network, although you could say it was because of my college network that I was already affiliated with that got me that job. but it was more about the fact that I was using it as an opportunity to expand my network. And it's funny because even after college, I stayed in touch with a lot of those events people. And even when I got into my career and I needed an event space, I was able to reach back out to them and leverage that connection. But it was also cool to be able to have, those connections, to be able to go to a baseball card show and sit next to a Hall of Fame baseball player and work with them. They probably don't remember me, and they probably not anyway. I was able to leverage that in my network. But it's not necessarily always about what you can get from your network too. We'll talk about that in another video. But that's another job where I got it because of my college network, but I also leveraged it for networking. And that's the same for the next job that I'm going to talk about, and that is working in career services. If you're a college student listening to this video right now, and you're trying to get better at networking and trying to get some tips about networking, if you have the opportunity on your campus to work in the career services office, that is a great networking job that you can have on campus. Now, there was added benefit for me because I was a human resources major. So being that I was majoring in human resources, just being around resumes and interview prep and mock interviews and job fairs, it was kind of like even better for me because I was connected into something that was directly affiliated with my career pathway and my major, right? But in that career services job, what did I get to do? I got to talk to employers all the time. I got to see job postings before anybody else saw them. But more importantly, at the job fair that we would have on campus, I was an integral part of the team helping to prepare for and run that event. And of course, the job fair, some people can approach a job fair. Well, maybe we'll do a whole video about this as well. Some people can approach a job fair as, hi, I'm a job seeker and I'm desperate and I'm looking for a job. Here's my resume. Will you give me a job? Kind of approach. I've always approached job fairs as a networking event. And again, being that a human resources person and most of the people in attendance at a job fair were human resources people, it made more sense for me to network with those folks. Hey, I'd love to pick your brain about human resources related topics. I'd love to learn more about how you got into your career in human resources that led you to being at this event today. Can we talk sometime? Can I follow up with you? Can I send you an email? Can I learn from you and your expertise about how you got into the world of HR? So again, there's maybe a little bit more of a direct connection there for me, but let's do another whole video about how to leverage job fairs and use them as networking events, not just as a job fair like everyone else does. The nice thing about that job though too was that I got a chance to interact with those folks before all of you did. And specifically what I mean by that is when folks would show up to set up for the job fair, I would be the one on the golf cart helping them carry their stuff to their table and help make sure that they were set up and ready to go for the event. So it's kind of a blend of both worlds, the event staff mixed with my career services job that allowed me to be able to work that event, but also have that initial connection with folks. And it was a lot of fun actually on the golf cart where you're joking around with them and hang on, we're going to be going up the hill, or should I drive fast or should I go slow or should I go as fast as this go-kart can go? Let's have some fun with it. And I was able to joke with them and build some rapport when I was in my casual clothes, my event setup clothes. And when I showed up to the event later with my suit and tie on, I was able to go up to the table and say, hi, you remember me? I'm Scott D. Let me give you another example from college. And again, this is something that is not unique to my time in college or my particular college. I think any college student can leverage this effectively in your environment right now. And that is professional networks and professional organizations that exist within your college or in your community. Let me give you a specific from my case. There is a society, a national organization for human resource professionals. It is called the Society for Human Resource Management. There's others for the Society of Women and Engineers, Society for Mechanical Engineers, Society for Black Engineers. I'm sure there's an accounting association. There's pretty much every industry has a nationally recognized, national accreditation, certifying, networking support body, right? That's what SHRM was. Well, SHRM also has a student chapter, a student program for college students. Most of those programs and the organizations they talked about have them. A lot of those organizations also have local chapters. So we had the Pittsburgh Human Resources Association, which was affiliated with the bigger SHRM, right? They were a local entity, a local franchise, if you will, of that bigger entity. So I tell you all this to tell you that some way, shape, or form, I figured out that that existed. But what I figured out and I learned was that we did not have a student chapter of SHRM at Robert Morris, despite having a major in human resources. So I asked my professor, I said, he's the head professor of the department. I said, why do we not have a SHRM chapter? And he said, well, nobody in the past wanted to be in charge of running it. Leadership opportunity to be, chart the course for what that organization does and looks like, and have not only just be a member of it, but be a leader in it. That just jumped out to me immediately, right? So I started a SHRM chapter on our college campus, and then looked at not only programmatic things that we could do, but how we could tie into the bigger SHRM organization and the Pittsburgh chapter of the SHRM organization as well. The Pittsburgh chapter, for example, was extremely excited to know that a local college was offering a pathway towards SHRM's certifications, but also that there was students interested in being members of the PHRA. They actually set up a student membership option as a result of our program. But also, it created a tremendous amount of networking opportunities, part of which I was able to lead and make happen as well, right? So one of the things we did as a SHRM chapter is we had our own conference for other HR college students around Pittsburgh. There was 2 or 3 other colleges at that time in our region that also had human resources degrees, or general business majors that were leaning towards HR. So I actually helped to coordinate and launch, which showed initiative and showed leadership and event planning and marketing, right? Skills demonstrated that can you put on your resume. But I organized a student conference. And so not only could my peers and myself learn and prepare better for the future, but we also brought in a lot of professionals, largely from that Pittsburgh Human Resources Association, to be guest speakers and to be panelists and to be a part of the day and to network with all of us. We actually concluded the day with mocktails instead of having alcohol. Most of us were underage. And so instead, just to have something fun and an opportunity for us to network and engage with each other and build rapport with the professionals that were in attendance. So it was a huge hit. It was a huge success. One of the things we also did as part of that event is we made sure that every student had business cards. Now, this might be a little bit dated because everybody's using LinkedIn now and they're just connecting directly with their phones. But I think there's still a place for business cards in the world. But most college students don't have business cards. So we made generic business cards for every student so that they would have something to network with and to hand out in exchange with the folks in attendance. As a part of that relationship, I then, as a college student, went on to pursue that SHRM certification as a student, started that process while I was still in college. And because of the conference and because of the SHRM, I actually went to the PHRA's offices, the Pittsburgh chapter's offices, a lot and built a lot of rapport with those folks. If you're in human resources and you're watching this, by the way, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it's somewhere north of 80% of jobs in human resources never get posted online. It's a very tight-knit network. We all know each other. And a lot of times when there's a job opening in human resources, it goes through the network and never gets posted online before that job gets filled. So it is an industry niche where it's really, really good to be a good networker and to be tied into those networks. My first professional job coming out of college was at a bank. Now, I said I got a degree in human resources, but keep in mind, banks employ a lot of people, especially the bigger ones, and have a lot of HR people. So for me, it was also like big corporate. Like that's the only place for some reason coming out of college I wanted to work was in a big corporate environment. And at the time, the bank that I went to work for, which I won't mention in this video, but very large present, very long history in Pittsburgh. You might be able to figure it out. There's 3 that have a very long history in Pittsburgh. It was one of those 3. And they had the second largest skyscraper downtown at the time. That probably narrows it down to the 1. But I got that job because of networking. And here's how it worked. I sent my resume to that company multiple times, along with other Fortune 500, very large corporate environments. I'd never heard anything back from that bank, though, after I sent my resume and applied for jobs with them online. Again, keep in mind this is a long time ago, but I don't think that story is really any different, probably for a lot of you, than it was back when I was engaged in job searching and coming out of college. But I went to a job fair. I leveraged what I talked about a minute ago, building rapport, asking questions, where did you go to college, getting to know the person that was there, not just being a typical desperate job seeker. The woman I talked to at that bank that was at the job fair, she was also a Robert Morris alumni. So we had an instant connection. She had been to the campus, I was at the campus. So this is a story about leveraging alumni and leveraging your alumni network, which in some cases, in some colleges is stronger than others. In some cases, it's why you pick that college. People go to Harvard because they want to be, not only get a great education, but they want to be plugged into the Harvard network, right? The Harvard network's pretty darn good, right? And there's some pretty influential people that came out of Harvard and MIT and RIT and these bigger name schools, right? Or these higher institutions of knowledge or prestige, right? So that connection didn't get me the job, though. That connection got my foot in the door. It got my resume back to the top of the pile versus just being another resume in the stack. So that allowed me to have that first interview. Maybe I was spoken about a little bit more highly in the initial introduction because the person was also alumni of the same school, understood the curriculum, understood the program, understood what a graduate coming out of that program was. But also, it didn't give me the job, right? I still, with my skills, my experience, my communication skills, had to actually land that job. I'm going to give you a couple other shorter stories, but some additional examples here just as we wind things down. My next job after working at that bank for 2 or 3 years, a friend of mine from college was actually working at a nonprofit organization in Pittsburgh. She was working with college students and high school students and high schools. She was working with a lot of really cool companies and setting up events and doing outreach activities. And I ran into her at an event one time and I said, "Oh my gosh, Michelle, you have the greatest job ever. It just sounds like it's so much fun and you can be entrepreneurial and you can really make a difference and make an impact. Man, if you ever leave that job, let me know, because I would jump on an opportunity to fill that void if you ever decide to leave." Well, fast forward about a year later, she calls me up and says, "Hey, Scott, are you still interested in possibly working at the nonprofit I work at? Because I'm leaving, I'm taking another job, and I can put your name in." And of course, we're college alumni affiliated, but also we were good friends. She's like, "I'll put a good word in for you if you're interested in me putting your resume in for it." I did, and it's actually the job I'm still in today. So fast forward, I'm really going to date myself here, but fast forward 20 years, I'm still in that job and still loving it. And it's because of a friend who connected me to that network. For a short period of time, I was actually there as an independent contractor before I came on full time. So I actually left for a short period of time and went to a very famous retailer that we have here in Pittsburgh. You would know them. They work in the sports industry. They're all over the United States. You probably know who they are. But I went to work for them for a very short period of time, about a year and a half before I went back to the nonprofit. And the way I got that job was also a friend. It was actually a friend that I had made at my first job working at the bank. He left the bank, went to this retailer. They were expanding the network of stores across the nation, and said, "Hey, would you like to come to a job that has benefits?" Because at the time as a contractor, I didn't have benefits. And I said, "That sounds really interesting. I majored in sports management for one semester. I like sports. That'd be a cool place to work." And they're building a brand new headquarters building, which was really awesome too. Again, got the job on my own accord, but it was a friend that was already working there that I had connected with in my previous job that we stayed in touch. We were still friends, and they got me in the door. So again, hopefully through these stories, you're just hearing a couple of examples of how in your everyday course of life, you can either position yourself or leverage things you're already doing or could be doing in order to expand your network, be more effective at networking. And maybe you too will have a success story of how networking helped you to land your dream job or a job in general. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below if networking has been valuable to you, if you have a success story of how networking has helped you, or if you have any tips that you'd like to share about networking down in the comments. Please feel free to leave those. We're going to be talking in a series of videos here about networking, so a lot more information and insights and my perspectives on networking yet to come. I'm sure I'll probably have some of those videos up here somewhere that you can link directly to. But we'll also talk about a lot of other topics on this channel, including some of my favorite success principle books and some other thoughts around success and mentality and careers, and we'll see where else this channel takes us. But first video in this series, and glad I could share some of my insights, and I'll talk to you again soon.